The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest room that most species would ever see in their lifetimes. It floated at the heart of Station Meridian, a massive structure that hung in neutral space between a dozen different empires. The chamber itself could hold 10,000 beings from 500 different worlds, and on this particular day, it was nearly full. Ambassador Catherine Cole stood at the human delegation's podium, her hands folded neatly in front of her. She was a small woman by human standards, with gray-streaked brown hair and a face that seemed designed for smiling. She was smiling now, even as the Velthary representative shouted accusations at her from across the chamber. "Your colony ships have violated sacred space," the Velthary said. His name was difficult for humans to pronounce. A collection of clicks and whistles that translated roughly to Voice of the Ancestors. He was tall and thin, with skin like blue leather and eyes that burned yellow with anger. "The migration routes of our ancestors are holy ground. Your presence there is an insult to our entire civilization."
Catherine's smile did not waver.
"We understand your concerns completely," she said. Her voice was warm and patient, like a teacher speaking to a frustrated student. "Earth is prepared to offer alternative corridor arrangements. We would also be happy to discuss compensation for any disruption we may have caused." In the observation gallery above the main chamber, a four-eyed creature named Tethvan watched the exchange with growing confusion. Tethvan was a Marani, a species known throughout the galaxy for their dedication to recording history. He had been assigned to study humanity 30 cycles ago, and in all that time, he had never managed to understand them. The Velthary migration routes had been abandoned for over 600 years. Everyone knew this. The Velthary themselves had admitted it in council records. Yet here was humanity, apologizing for using empty space that no one had visited in centuries. "They are weak," said a voice beside him. Tethvan turned two of his eyes toward the speaker. It was High Speaker Zorvath of the Kathrani Dominion, a massive, reptilian creature covered in dark green scales. The Kathroni were one of the oldest military powers in the galaxy, and they had never bothered to hide their contempt for younger species. Perhaps Tethvan said carefully, "The Kathrani were not beings you disagreed with openly." "There is no perhaps," Zorvath said. His voice was a low rumble, like stones grinding together. "Watch them. They bow to every demand. They smile through every insult. In 300 cycles of Kathrani history, we have never encountered a species so eager to show their belly." Tethvan said nothing, but he made a note in his personal records. Something about Zorvath's words bothered him, though he could not say exactly what. Down in the chamber, Catherine Cole was still speaking. "We value our relationship with the Velthary people," she said. "Earth has always believed that cooperation and mutual respect are the foundations of a lasting peace. If our presence in the migration corridors has caused offense, we are willing to withdraw immediately." The Velthary representative made a sound of satisfaction. "You will also pay a penalty for the offense already committed, of course. We will have our financial representatives contact yours to arrange appropriate compensation." Her smile never changed, but for just a moment, something flickered in her eyes. It was there and gone so quickly that Tethvan almost convinced himself he had imagined it. Behind Catherine, a young human male stood at attention. His name was Daniel Perry, and he served as Catherine's aide. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with short, dark hair and a face that seemed just as pleasant as his superiors. But Tethvan noticed something odd about Daniel Perry. The young man's eyes kept moving to the Kathrani delegation, and there was something in his gaze that did not match his friendly expression. Tethvan had seen that look before. He had seen it in the eyes of prey animals in the moment before they realized they were not prey at all. The session continued for another 2 hours. Humanity agreed to 3 more compromises with 3 different species. They apologized for a trade dispute that had clearly been the other party's fault. They offered to reduce their patrol presence in a border zone that was legally their territory. They smiled and nodded and made concession after concession. When the session finally ended, Tethvan made his way down to the main floor. He wanted to speak with the human delegation to ask questions that had been building for 30 cycles. But before he could reach them, he found his path blocked by Zorvath. You waste your time with the humans, the High Speaker said. They have nothing to teach us. I am a historian, Tethvan replied. All species have something to teach us. Zorvath made a sound that might have been laughter. The humans teach us only one lesson: that weakness invites destruction. He leaned closer, and Tethvan could smell the meat on his breath. Tomorrow, we will demand the Kepler systems. The humans have been expanding toward them for years, building colonies, establishing trade routes. They believe those systems are theirs. Tethvan felt a chill run through his body. The Kepler systems are legally neutral territory. The humans have filed proper claims. Claims can be withdrawn. Zorvath's eyes glittered with cruel amusement. You have watched the humans. You know they will give us what we want. They always give. The High Speaker walked away, leaving Tethvan alone in the emptying chamber. That night, Tethvan returned to his quarters and began reviewing his records on humanity. He had thousands of files, covering everything from human history to human biology to human psychology. He had studied their wars, their art, their science, their philosophy. And somewhere in all that data, there was something that did not fit. He found it in the classified archives, buried under layers of security clearance that his position as council archivist allowed him to access. It was a collection of reports from first contact teams, the crews who had encountered human vessels before humanity joined the council. The reports were brief and clinical, but the message was clear. 3 separate species had attempted to raid human colony ships in the early days of human expansion. None of those species existed anymore. Tethvan read the reports twice, then a third time. He thought about Catherine Cole's patient smile. He thought about Daniel Perry's watchful eyes. He thought about the way humanity apologized for things that were not their fault, the way they made concessions they did not need to make. He began writing a warning to the council, a message that would explain what he now suspected. But even as he wrote, he knew it would not be sent in time. The Kathrani had already made their decision. Zorvath believed he was dealing with a weak species that would surrender. Rather than fight, Tethvan was beginning to suspect that the High Speaker was about to make the worst mistake in Kathrani history. He saved his warning anyway, hoping someone would read it before it was too late. Then he went to his sleeping chamber, though he knew he would not sleep. Tomorrow was going to change everything. The emergency alarm woke Tethvan from a restless sleep. He had been dreaming of fire, of ships burning in the void, of screaming voices cut suddenly silent. When the alarm pulled him back to reality, he realized the dreams had been a warning. He dressed quickly and made his way to the council chamber. The corridors of Station Meridian were crowded with beings from 100 different worlds, all moving in the same direction. Their voices created a wall of noise, a mixture of languages and sounds that his translators struggled to process. But one word came through clearly, repeated over and over in dozens of tongues. Humans. The council chamber was already full when Tethvan reached the observation gallery. He had to push past several larger beings to find a spot near the railing. But what he saw when he looked down made the effort worthwhile. Catherine Cole stood at the human podium. She was dressed in the same formal attire she always wore, her hair neatly arranged, her posture straight and professional. But her face was different. The patient smile was gone. Her expression was completely blank, like a mask that had been wiped clean of all emotion. Beside her stood a human male that Tethvan had never seen before. He wore a uniform of dark blue and silver, covered in medals and insignia that marked him as military. His name, Tethvan would later learn, was Admiral Victor Reyes. He was the commander of Earth's 7th Fleet, and his presence in the council chamber was unprecedented. What is the meaning of this? Demanded the council moderator. She was a Cillian, an ancient being whose body was made of living crystal. Her voice chimed like bells when she spoke, usually soft and melodic. Now it rang harsh and sharp. Military personnel are not permitted in council sessions. This is a violation of protocol. Catherine Cole spoke, and her voice was nothing like it had been the day before. There was no warmth in it, no patience, no gentle diplomacy. It was flat and cold, like metal. 40 minutes ago, she said, the Kathrani Dominion launched an attack on the human colony of New Pittsburgh. They used plasma bombardment on civilian population centers. Initial reports indicate 17,000 dead. The number is still rising. The chamber erupted in noise. Tethvon gripped the railing of the observation gallery, his four eyes fixed on the scene below. He had known something was coming, had tried to warn anyone who would listen, but he had not expected this. The Kathrani had not demanded the Kepler systems. They had simply attacked. When the noise finally died down, Tethvon heard laughter. High Speaker Zorvath stood at the Kathrani podium, and he was laughing. The sound was deep and rumbling, filled with cruel amusement. Around him, his delegation wore expressions of smug satisfaction. The vermin colony was in Kathrani space, Zorvath said. His voice carried easily through the chamber, and he made no effort to hide his contempt. We warned humanity repeatedly that their expansion would not be tolerated. They chose to ignore those warnings. They believed their pretty words and soft smiles would protect them. He stepped away from his podium and began walking toward the human delegation. His massive body moved with the confidence of a predator who had never known fear. Consider New Pittsburgh a lesson, Zorvath continued. A demonstration of what happens to species who forget their place. You are not equals here, humans. You are children, playing at diplomacy while your betters watch with amusement. He stopped just a few meters from Catherine Cole. He towered over her, his bulk casting a shadow that swallowed her completely. We will continue, Zorvath said. Every human world outside your birth system will burn. We will hunt your colony ships through the void. We will reduce your species to the single planet where you belong, and you will spend the rest of your existence thanking us for our mercy. He leaned down, bringing his face close to Catherine's. His breath washed over her, hot and foul. Unless, he said, you wish to apologize. Perhaps if you beg prettily enough, we will be satisfied with only New Pittsburgh. Catherine Cole looked up at the High Speaker. She was silent for a long moment. Tethvon found himself holding his breath. Then she raised her hand. The gesture was small, almost casual. Just a slight lifting of her palm, fingers spread. It should have meant nothing. But something changed in the chamber when she made it. The air itself seemed to shift, as if the walls of reality had suddenly moved closer. Admiral Reyes, Catherine said. Her voice had not changed, still flat and cold. What is the status of the 7th Fleet? Victor Reyes answered without hesitation. All vessels are in position, Ambassador. We have been in position for 6 hours. Zorvath's laughter died. His eyes narrowed, and for the first time, something like uncertainty crossed his face. What? Catherine lowered her hand. She did not step back from Zorvath. She did not flinch or look away. She simply stood there, small and still, looking up at the massive creature who had just threatened to destroy her species. High Speaker, she said, I would like to inform the Council of a change in human diplomatic policy. She paused, and in that pause, Tethvon felt the galaxy shift on its axis. Humanity's courteous mode has now been turned off. The words hung in the air like the echo of an explosion. No one moved. No one spoke. Even Zorvath seemed frozen, his massive body suddenly still. Catherine Cole smiled. It was not the smile she had worn before. That smile had been warm and patient, designed to put others at ease. This smile was something else entirely. This smile had sharp edges. This smile promised things that made Tethvon's blood run cold. You have made several assumptions about humanity, Catherine said. You assumed our courtesy was weakness. You assumed our patience was cowardice. You assumed that because we chose not to fight, we could not fight. She turned to face the full council, her voice rising to carry through the entire chamber. Every single one of those assumptions was wrong. Tethvon watched the faces of the delegates below. He saw confusion, fear, disbelief, but mostly he saw the beginning of understanding, the terrible realization that everything they thought they knew had been a lie. The galaxy had spent 37 years studying humans. They had analyzed human behavior, documented human responses, built complex models to predict human actions. They had been watching a mask the entire time. Now, the mask was coming off. Silence held the council chamber in its grip. 10,000 beings from 500 worlds sat motionless, waiting to see what would happen next. Tethfon could hear his own heartbeats, all three of them, pounding in his chest like drums. Catherine Cole stood at the center of attention, her face calm and composed. But it was not the calm of patience anymore. It was the calm of certainty, the calm of someone who knew exactly what was about to happen and was not afraid of it. For 37 years, she said, humanity has been a member of this council. In that time, you have observed us carefully. You have watched us apologize when we did not need to apologize. You have watched us compromise when the law was on our side. You have watched us smile through insults and retreat from confrontations we could have won. She touched a control on her podium, and the massive display screen at the center of the chamber flickered to life. A star map appeared, showing the territory surrounding Earth and its colonies. Red dots marked human settlements. Blue dots marked military installations. Then more blue dots appeared, and more and more. Tethfan watched the map fill with blue markers until human space looked like an ocean of light. He heard gasps from the delegates below, heard voices rising in shock and disbelief. The Kathrani delegation had gone completely still, their scales pale with sudden fear. Earth maintains 14 deep space fleets, Catherine said. The Council was aware of 3. The additional 11 have been operating in classified sectors, conducting exercises, maintaining readiness. She paused. We believed in peace. We hoped for peace, but we never trusted peace to protect us. She touched another control, and the display zoomed in on Kathrani space. A ring of blue markers surrounded it completely. The 7th Fleet, Catherine continued, currently holds position around the Kathrani Dominion. 412 combat vessels. Enough firepower to glass every planet in your territory within a single rotation. Zorvath found his voice at last. This is a bluff, he said. But his voice was not steady anymore. The confidence had cracked. You cannot have hidden this many ships. Our intelligence services would have detected them. Your intelligence services did detect them, Catherine replied. They filed 7 separate reports warning that human military capacity was being significantly underestimated. Those reports were dismissed by your leadership as paranoid speculation. She smiled again, that sharp and terrible smile. We know because we have copies of all of them. Admiral Victor Reyes stepped forward. He was a tall man with silver hair and eyes the color of storm clouds. When he spoke, his voice was conversational, almost bored.
For the record, he said, I would like to confirm our current targeting status.
We have firing solutions on every Kathrani military installation, every shipyard, every defense platform, every population center. He paused. Total time to complete full planetary bombardment of the Kathrani homeworld, 16 minutes. We have run the simulations. They are very thorough. The Kathrani delegation erupted in panicked shouting. Other delegations joined them, demanding explanations, screaming accusations. The council moderator tried to restore order, her crystalline voice chiming desperately, but no one was listening. Catherine waited. Eventually, the noise subsided. Fear has a way of silencing even the loudest voices, and there was a great deal of fear in the chamber now. You might be wondering, Catherine said, why humanity chose to appear weak. Why we smiled through every insult. Why we made concessions we did not need to make. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of different species. The answer is simple. We were being polite. She let that word hang in the air. Politeness, she continued, is a choice. It is a gift that you give to others, a way of showing respect and building trust. Humanity chose to be polite because we genuinely wanted peace. We genuinely wanted cooperation. We genuinely believed that if we treated others with kindness, they would eventually respond in kind. Her gaze found Zorvath. You have taught us that we were wrong. The High Speaker opened his mouth to speak, but Catherine cut him off with a gesture. 17,000 people died on New Pittsburgh, she said. 17,000 men, women, children who were going about their ordinary lives when your ships appeared in their sky. They were not soldiers. They were not threats. They were families, communities, dreams, and futures. And you burned them because you thought we were weak. Her voice dropped, becoming quiet, but somehow even more terrible. We are not weak. We have never been weak. What we were, High Speaker, was patient. What we were was hopeful. What we were was willing to give you every possible chance to choose a different path. She spread her hands. You have used up all of your chances. Da 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 da. Tethfon watched Catherine's face as she spoke. He had studied humans for 30 cycles, had read thousands of files about their history and psychology, but he had never truly understood them until this moment. He had thought their courtesy was a mask-hiding weakness. Now he realized it was a mask-hiding strength. The humans had not been pretending to be peaceful. They had been genuinely trying to be peaceful, forcing down their other instincts, hoping against hope that the galaxy would reward their efforts. But beneath that hope, beneath that effort, something else had always been waiting. Something old and patient and very, very dangerous. The galaxy had poked at that something for 37 years. Had insulted it, dismissed it, taken advantage of it. Now that something was awake and it was angry, Catherine Cole turned back to the council moderator. I am formally requesting an emergency session to address the Cathroni attack on human territory. All relevant parties will remain on this station until the matter is resolved. She glanced at Zorvath. I strongly suggest that the Cathroni delegation cooperate fully. The council moderator nodded, her crystalline body trembling with barely suppressed terror. The request is granted. Emergency protocols are now in effect. 8. Catherine smiled pleasantly. Thank you. Humanity appreciates the council's cooperation. She returned to her podium, and Daniel Perry handed her a tablet. She began reviewing documents as if nothing unusual had happened, as if she had not just threatened to destroy an entire civilization. In the observation gallery, Tethfan began typing furiously on his recording device. He had been writing a history of humanity for 30 cycles. He now realized that everything he had written was wrong. He deleted his old files and started over. The next 12 hours changed everything. Tethfan did not leave the observation gallery. He could not. What was happening in the council chamber was too important to miss, too significant to record secondhand. He sent messages to his assistants, asking them to bring food and stimulants. He settled into his seat and watched history unfold. The council chamber had transformed. It was no longer a place of ceremony and procedure. It had become a command center, a war room, a court of judgment. Human military officers moved through the space, setting up communication stations and tactical displays. The other delegations watched them with a mixture of fear and fascination. Catherine Cole had not slept. She had not eaten. She had stood at her podium for 12 straight hours, calmly and methodically destroying every assumption the galaxy had made about humanity. The Velthari sacred migration routes, she said at one point, pulling up records on the central display. Abandoned 1,200 years ago. We have complete survey data showing the routes have been empty for over a millennium. We knew this when we began colonizing the region. We offered compromises anyway. The Velthari representative tried to interrupt, but Catherine raised her hand. The gesture was small, but the Velthari fell silent immediately. We offered compromises, Catherine continued, because cooperation cost us little and built what we hoped would become goodwill. We were investing in a peaceful future. We believed that if we demonstrated good faith often enough, eventually the galaxy would respond in kind. She looked directly at the Velthari representative. That investment has not paid off. She moved on to the next topic without waiting for a response. The Cillian trade disputes. The Morani border tensions. The 17 separate incidents where council species had tested human patience through minor aggressions and territorial challenges. Catherine had files on all of them. Dates, locations, outcomes, analyses. She laid them out one by one, showing the council exactly how humanity had been treated and exactly how humanity had responded. We documented everything, she said. We measured the contempt you showed us. We watched you convince yourselves that our kindness was a sign of inferiority. She paused, letting her words sink in. You were wrong. Daniel Perry approached with a tablet. Catherine glanced at it, nodded, and turned to Admiral Reyes.
At us.
Admiral!
Victor Reyes stepped forward.
His voice was still calm and conversational, as if he were discussing the weather rather than the destruction of an empire. The Kathrani's second and third armadas had been neutralized, he said. We lost 2 vessels. They lost 147. Their homeworld defense grid has been disabled. We are holding position, awaiting further orders. A sound came from the Kathrani delegation. It might have been a sob. Zorvath stood among his advisors, his massive body slumped, his scales completely white. He looked like a creature who had just realized that everything he believed had been a lie. We were polite, Catherine said again. We say that word often because it is important that you understand what it means. Politeness is a gift. It is something you offer to others because you respect them, because you want to build a relationship with them, because you believe they deserve to be treated with dignity. She turned to face the full council. Politeness is not weakness. It is not cowardice. It is not an invitation to take advantage. It is a choice freely given that can be freely withdrawn. She let those words hang in the air. Humanity's choice to be polite was genuine. We truly wanted peace. We truly hoped for cooperation. But we were never naive. We have too much history for naivety. We know what we are capable of, and we know what others are capable of. So while we smiled and compromised and extended every possible courtesy, we also prepared. She gestured at the tactical displays that now filled the chamber. We prepared very thoroughly. The council moderator spoke, her crystalline voice barely above a whisper. What do you want? Catherine turned to face her. Justice for New Pittsburgh. Full reparations for the dead and displaced. A formal acknowledgement from every council species that humanity's restraint was a choice, not a limitation. She paused. And perhaps, going forward, a bit more respect. The negotiations that followed were unlike anything the council had seen before. Humanity did not ask for things. Humanity stated requirements. The Kathrani did not negotiate. They accepted. The Dominion would pay reparations for every life lost on New Pittsburgh. The amounts were staggering, enough to bankrupt their treasury for generations. They agreed without argument. The Kathrani military would be reduced to a defensive force only. All offensive capabilities would be dismantled under human supervision. They agreed without argument. High Speaker Zorvath would face trial for crimes against sentient beings. The trial would be conducted by a joint human council tribunal. Zorvath himself agreed, his voice hollow and broken. But the most significant demand was the last one. Every species represented in this council, Catherine said, will formally acknowledge that humanity's diplomatic courtesy was a choice, not a reflection of capability. This acknowledgement will be recorded in the permanent archives and taught in every educational institution in council space. The council moderator hesitated. That is an unusual request. It is a necessary one. Catherine's voice softened slightly, and for just a moment, Tefvan saw something that looked almost like sadness in her eyes. We do not want this to happen again. We do not want to wake up tomorrow and find that some other species has convinced itself that human kindness is human weakness. We want the galaxy to understand, clearly and permanently, what we are. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of worlds. We are a species that chooses peace. We are a species that values cooperation. We are a species that genuinely wants to build a better future for everyone. But we are also a species that will protect ourselves and our people when we must. We are both of these things at once, and we always have been. She spread her hands. The galaxy has seen our courtesy. Now it has seen what lies beneath. We hope that going forward, you will remember both. The acknowledgement was drafted that night. Every delegation signed it. Even the Velthri. Even the Morani. Even the species that had never directly wronged humanity, but had watched others do so without objection. They signed because they understood now. They had thought they knew what humanity was. They had been completely wrong, and none of them wanted to find out what would happen if they made that mistake. Again, 1 month passed. The galaxy settled into a new shape, one that would have been unrecognizable just 30 days before. Treaties were rewritten. Alliances were restructured. Old assumptions crumbled, and new understandings rose to take their place. Tethvan published his revised analysis of humanity during the third week. He had worked on it constantly since the day Catherine Cole had turned off humanity's courteous mode, pouring 30 cycles of research into a document that tried to explain what he had witnessed. The analysis became the most accessed file in Council archives within hours of its release. Every species wanted to understand what had happened. Every species wanted to know how they had gotten humanity so wrong. The Kathrani Dominion barely existed anymore. Their military had been dismantled, their fleets reduced to patrol craft and defensive platforms. Zorvath had been executed by his own people before the Joint Tribunal could even convene. The Kathrani blamed him for everything, for the attack on New Pittsburgh, for the destruction that followed, for leading them into a war they could never have won. It was easier to blame one person than to accept that their entire civilization had made the same mistake. The 17,000 dead of New Pittsburgh were memorialized in a monument visible from orbit. Human ships had carried the materials from Earth itself. Stone quarried from the mountains of their homeworld, shaped and carved by their finest artisans. The monument was simple but powerful, a ring of pillars surrounding a central flame that would burn forever. Fueled by the energy of the star around which New Pittsburgh orbited. But the greatest changes were harder to see. Council species no longer interrupted human diplomats. Trade negotiations that once dragged on for months concluded in days. When humanity made requests, they were taken seriously. Not because the galaxy had suddenly developed appreciation for human culture or values. Most species still found humans confusing and vaguely unsettling. But everyone now understood what lay beneath the courtesy, and no one wanted to test it again. Near the end of the month, Tethvan secured an interview with Catherine Cole. She was returning to Earth soon, her work on Station Meridian complete, and he did not know when he might have another chance to speak with her. They met in a small cafe on the station's civilian level, drinking beverages that neither of them truly enjoyed. "I have to ask," Tethvan said, leaning forward across the table. "Was any of it real? The patience, the kindness, the willingness to compromise?" Catherine considered the question. She looked tired, Tethvan realized. Not triumphant, as he had expected. Not satisfied with humanity's victory. Just tired and perhaps a little sad. "All of it was real," she said finally. "That is what makes it so tragic." She wrapped her hands around her cup, staring down at the liquid inside. "We genuinely wanted to be the people we appeared to be. We genuinely hoped the galaxy would reward good faith with good faith. When we smiled through insults, we were truly trying to be patient. When we made concessions we did not need to make, we were truly trying to build trust. We wanted peace to work. We really did. But you prepared for the alternative." "We always prepare for the alternative." Catherine looked up, meeting his four eyes with her too. "That is the curse of being human, I suppose. We carry our history with us everywhere we go. We know what we are capable of because we have done it to each other. The wars, the atrocities, the countless ways we have found to hurt one another." She shook her head. "We hate that part of ourselves. We truly do. But we cannot pretend it does not exist." Tethvan thought about that for a moment. "So when you joined the council ... We made a decision," Catherine said. "We would try to be better. We would extend courtesy and patience and good faith, even when it was not returned. We would give the galaxy every possible chance to prove that our worst fears were unfounded." And then New Pittsburgh happened. Catherine's face tightened. And then New Pittsburgh happened. She was silent for a long moment. 17,000 people, families, children, gone in an instant. Because a powerful species convinced itself that our kindness was weakness, she set down her cup. We did not want this, archivist. We did not want to reveal what we had hidden. We did not want to show the galaxy the teeth behind our smile. But when you threaten our people, when you murder our innocence, when you make it clear that our courtesy will only be rewarded with more violence, ... She spread her hands. "What choice do we have?" Tethvan recorded her words carefully. He knew they would be added to the archives, would become part of the permanent record of human history. He wanted to get them exactly right. And now? He asked, "What happens now?" "Now we go back to being polite." Catherine's expression softened slightly. We smile. We compromise when we can. We extend courtesy to those who have not earned it. That is who we want to be. That is who we will continue trying to be. But everyone knows now. Yes, Catherine nodded. Everyone knows. And perhaps that is for the best. Perhaps the galaxy needed to understand that human kindness is a choice, not a limitation. Perhaps now that they know what we are capable of, they will think twice before testing us again. She finished her drink and stood. Thank you for trying to warn them, by the way. I read your sealed report. You were the only one who understood what was coming.
Yes.
Tethfon blinked all four eyes in surprise. How did you know about that? Catherine smiled. It was a small smile, almost sad, but there was warmth in it. Real warmth, the kind she had shown before. Everything changed. We read everything, Archivist. We watch everything. We prepare for everything. She gathered her things and turned to leave. That is how we survived our own history. That is how we will survive the galaxy. She paused at the door and looked back at him. Write your history of humanity, she said. Tell them the truth about what we are. Tell them that we want peace, that we work for peace, that we believe in peace with every fiber of our being. But also tell them this: peace is a gift we choose to give. It is not a promise. It is not a guarantee. And if anyone ever mistakes our courtesy for weakness again, she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Catherine Cole walked out of the cafe and disappeared into the crowds of Station Meridian. Just another human going about her day. Just another member of a species that had chosen to be kind, that had fought against its own nature to extend goodwill to strangers, that had hoped beyond hope that the galaxy would be worthy of their efforts. Tethfon watched her go. Then he opened his recording device and began typing the final words of his history. Humanity, he wrote, is not what we thought they were. They are not weak, though they often appear so. They are not naive, though they extend trust to those who have not earned it. They are not peaceful by nature, though they work harder than any species I have ever studied to choose peace. What humanity is, what they have always been, is something more complicated. They are a species at war with themselves, constantly fighting against their own instincts, constantly striving to be better than their history says they should be. They are capable of great kindness. They are also capable of great destruction. The galaxy would do well to remember both.